morning everyone, we're the Group 1 and we will be discussing about some intellectuals and their revolutionary ideas. So what is an intellectual? An intellectual, it encompasses a systematic and practical study of the natural and physical world. This involves systematic observation and experimentation. Human beings have embarked in scientific activities in order to know and understand everything around them. They observe and study the natural and physical world to find meanings and seek answers to many questions. They develop noble ideas, later known as philosophy, to provide possible explanation of certain phenomena. Humans also used religion or rationalized the origins of life and all lifeless forms. The idea of scientific revolution is claimed to have started in the early 16th century up to the 18th century in Europe. This was the period of enlightenment when the development is in the field of mathematics, physics, astronomy, biology, and chemistry transformed the views of society about nature. The ideas generated during this period enable the people to reflect, rethink, and re-examine their beliefs and their way of life. The scientific revolution was the golden age for people committed to scholarly life in science, but it was also a deeply trying moment to some scientific men that lead to their painful death or condemnation from the religious institutions who tried to preserve their faith, religion, and theological views. The scientific revolution is very significant in the development of human beings, transformation of the society, and in the formulation of scientific ideas. It significantly improved the conduct of scientific investigations, experiments, and observations. It also led to creation of a new research fields in science. It transformed the natural world and the world of ideas.
To further understand what exactly happened during the scientific revolution, it is important to examine the different individuals whose ideas have shaken and contested the dominant theories and ideas during this period, the truth of their time. Scientists in all periods of time are driven by their curiosity, critical thinking, and creativity to explore the physical and natural world. Their love for science is driven by their deep passion to know and to discover. Scientists are not driven by clamor for honor and publicity. They are ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Some scientists were never appreciated during their times. Some were sentenced to death, while others were condemned by the church during their time. Despite of all predicaments and challenges they experienced, they never stopped experimenting, theorizing, and discovering new knowledge and ideas. In this part, 3 notable scientists are discussed. For sure, there were many scientists who worked before and after these individuals. However, it is important to note that these men, particularly through their ideas, had shaken the world.
So here, there are 3 notable scientists, no other than Nicolaus or Nicolaus Copernicus, Charles Darwin, and Simon Freud. But first, let's talk about who is Nicolaus or Nicolaus Copernicus. So, he is considered as one of the Renaissance men, particularly in the field of science. Knowledge about the nature of the universe had been essentially unchanged since the great days of ancient Greece. Some 1,500 years before Copernicus came on the scene, Graben 2003, this continued up to the Renaissance period. In one important way, Copernicus resembled the Greek ancient philosophers or thinkers. He did not do anything extensive such as observing heavenly bodies or inviting people to test his ideas. His ideas were example of what is presently called as a thought experiment. By the time he finished his doctorate degree, Copernicus had been appointed as canon at Frombork Cathedral in Poland. Despite his duty as a canon, he had plenty of time to sustain his interest in astronomy. Copernicus' idea and a model of the universe was essentially complete in 1510. Copernicus was a busy man. His duty as a canon and as a doctor affected his time to formally publish his work and advance his career in astronomy. The publication of his book, which is on revolution of the heavenly spheres in 1543, is often cited as the start of the scientific revolution. In this book, he wanted a model of the universe in which everything moved around a single center and at varying rates. Copernicus placed the sun to be centerpiece of the universe. Copernicus is also a courageous man. All thought the Copernican model makes a sense now. During those times, it was judged to be heretic and therefore it was an unacceptable idea to be taught to the Catholics. The Catholic Church banned the Copernican model and was ignored by the Rome for the rest of the 16th century. So let's talk about the life of Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin is famous of his theory of evolution. He changed our concept of the world's creation and its evolution. Darwin is a genius who came from a line of intellectually gifted and wealthy family. He developed his interest in natural history during his time as a student at Shrewsbury School. He went to the best schools but was observed to be a mediocre student. He struggled in his study in medicine and ministry, which his father has imposed to him. Darwin's life soon changed when one of his professors recommended him to join a 5-year voyage through the HMS Beagle on the islands of Galapagos. Darwin published his book, The Origin of Species, in 1589. This book is considered to be one of the most important works in scientific literature. Darwin collected many significant materials in order to represent his theory with overwhelming evidence. His book presented evidence on how species evolve over time and presented traits and adaptation that differentiate species. His book, The Descent of Man, was so impressive yet very controversial. He introduced the idea of all organic life, including human beings, under the realm of evolutionary thinking. This replaced the dominant views of a religious or biblical design that places human beings in a privileged position of having been created by God. Darwin's theory of evolution scientifically questioned this view. Darwin's accomplishments were so diverse that it is useful to distinguish two fields to which he made major contributions: evolutionary biology and philosophy of science. More than these works, what made Darwin truly remarkable was his courage to challenge religious and unscientific ideas that are deemed to be prominent during those days. His unorthodox way of pursuing science gave more value to evidence-based science. Darwin provided different framework of doing scientific activities. It is a science marked by observation and experiment. So lastly, one of the famous figure in the field of psychology, no other than Sigmund Freud. He is a towering literary figure and a very talented communicator who did his share and to raise the consciousness of the civilized world in psychological matters. Freud also made a significant contribution in the scientific world through the development of an important observational method to gather reliable data to study humans' inner life. This method is popularly known as the method of psychoanalysis. The scientific hypothesis he formulated formed the essential fundamental version of this method. For Freud, this method of psychoanalysis is a scientific way to study human mind and neurotic illness. Freud is not a traditional thinker. His method of psychoanalysis was proven to be effective in understanding some neurological conditions that were not understood by medicine at that time. His method was unorthodox, focusing on the human sexuality and the evil nature of man. Freud was born in a much later period from the scientific revolution, but his contribution to knowledge can be seen in many aspects of human scene, including art, literature, philosophy, politics, and psychotherapy. Whether he is more of a psychologist or a scientist is for people to decide. The fact remains that Freudian ideas and theories are still considered nowadays as a great inspiration to examine human mind and behavior in a more scientifically accepted way.